the third year of marriage to the CEO's wife. By chance, our marriage certificate was damaged by coffee. When I took the documents to the civil affairs office to apply for a replacement, the staff looked at me with a suspicious expression. "Sir, your marital status shows that you are single." I thought I misheard. After being stunned for a moment, I said, "That's impossible. My wife and I registered our marriage here 3 years ago." After the staff checked again, her expression became somewhat strange. "The system shows you are indeed still single. But Ms. Tang Qingjiu is married. In her spouse section, she is registered with another man. His name is Kai Lingfei. Do you know this person?" My head felt like it was exploding. In my ear, there was only a deafening ringing sound. I gripped the damaged fake marriage certificate tightly, dazedly got into the car. My phone suddenly vibrated twice. Tang Qingjiu's message appeared. "My love, I've secured a cooperation contract worth tens of billions. I bought roses and the small strawberry cake you like best. Just want to get home soon to be with you. I miss you so much. Do you miss me?" I stared at this message, suddenly burst into laughter. Laughing and laughing, tears slid down my cheeks. For many years, she asked me this every day. This question showed her love for me, but it turns out she had already legally married someone else long ago. When the car entered the villa area, I took a deep breath. Just as I was about to push the door open, I overheard Tang Qingjiu's conversation with her sister from the living room. "I just went to the hospital to check. See, Lingfei is fine, just a few scratches. You can stay home with Shen Yanshu without worries." Tang Qingjiu leaned against the sofa, her long legs crossed. She frowned, hummed in acknowledgement. Her close friend smiled and teased, "I really don't understand. Clearly you love Shen Yanshu very much. Why did you insist on registering marriage with Cai Lingfei in the beginning? Tell me the truth. Is he not just a substitute?" Silence fell for a few seconds, then Tang Qingjiu's melodious voice sounded. "So what? I used to think he was just a substitute. When Yanshu returned, I wouldn't need him anymore. But after he was taken away, I dreamed of him almost every night. Then I really couldn't bear him not being by my side. So I brought him back as an assistant to be near me. I can't be without Yanshu, but I also can't leave Lingfei. Yanshu can enjoy my open love. Lingfei can only accept his status in the shadows as compensation." "So what?" Her close friend sighed. "Aren't you afraid that Shen Yanshu will find out? With his personality, if he knew, even if you died in front of him, he wouldn't look back." Tang Qingjiu was silent for a moment. "Then don't ever let him find out." I stood outside the door. I just felt as if the blood in my entire body had frozen. I thought I would collapse, but I discovered that extreme pain is like this. It's like having a piece of your heart gouged out while still alive. Yet it still has to continue beating. I remembered this morning before Tang Qingjiu left. She still gently kissed my forehead. Remembered each time she got drunk after entertaining clients. She would always hug me and mutter, "My love, I can't be without you." Remembered how she placed my hand on her chest, saying, "This heart only beats for you." It turned out everything was fake. On the way back just now, I still thought she might be facing some difficulties. Now I know she simply loved two men at the same time. What she wanted was never to choose between the two, but rather to have one stand as the white moonlight and one sit as the vermilion mark. Fine. Tang Qingjiu is afraid he'll find out. Then he'll show her what it means to truly never look back. I turned and left. Directly did two things. First thing, I went to register. Cancelled all my personal information in the country. Second thing, I changed my name. The staff told me all procedures would be completed within 2 weeks. After 2 weeks, no matter how Tang Qingjiu searched heaven and earth, she would never find me again. I turned and walked away. The phone in my pocket kept vibrating, all missed calls and messages from Tang Qingjiu. I didn't look at them or reply. When I returned home, it was already dark. Tang Qingjiu stood in the living room. As soon as she saw me, she quickly walked over. The worry in her eyes was evident. "My love, where did you go? Just got home to find you weren't here. I've been waiting for hours. Almost turned the city upside down looking for you." Her concern didn't seem fake. I stared at her. My heart felt like it was being squeezed by an invisible hand. I suddenly remembered, back in high school, when she went to take a math competition, I was just 1 hour late in replying to her message. She had abandoned the test to rush back and find me, afraid something had happened to me, someone who once loved me so much. It turns out her love for me wasn't exclusive either. My throat felt blocked by something. Even breathing brought a numbing pain. But in the end, I just calmly opened my mouth. "Just went for a walk. Forgot to tell you." "Sorry." Tang Qingjiu finally relaxed. She nestled into my embrace. "Why are you apologizing to me? I'm not blaming you. I was just worried." She stood on tiptoe to kiss my chin, her voice gentle. "Come on. My love, the other day you said you wanted to eat sweet and sour ribs and steamed sea bass. Let me make them for you." "Okay." After speaking, she let go of me. Turned to the kitchen. I stood at the door, silently watching Tang Qingjiu. She wore an apron, her slender white fingers skillfully cutting vegetables. Her profile under the warm yellow light looked especially gentle. Suddenly remembered 3 years ago, when I had just returned to the country. Due to irregular eating habits over a long period, my stomach condition was so severe that I had to be hospitalized. At that time, Tang Qingyo, a CEO of a trillion-dollar group who had never cooked before, had dedicated a month of her time to learn from top chefs to cook delicious meals. Once during an international video conference, which coincided with her cooking time for me, she simply placed her tablet, cooked in the kitchen while listening to reports, shocking the senior managers. She once loved me that much. Now her phone rang. I saw her glance at the screen. Her expression changed slightly, then immediately put down the knife, hurriedly wiped her hands. My love. There's an urgent matter at the company. I need to go there for a while. She took off her apron, her tone sounding normal even. She stood on tiptoe to kiss me. I've already made 3 dishes. Eat first. Don't wait for me. I said nothing. Just nodded. After she left, I walked to the dining table, looking at the dishes still steaming. Suddenly my heart ached so much I could hardly breathe. I had clearly seen that call. It was from Tsai Ling-fei. I didn't sit down to eat as she wished. Instead went out to call a taxi. I followed her. Sure enough, Tang Qingyo didn't go to the company, but to the hospital, in the corridor of the hospital's VIP section. The entire floor had been cleared. Only a few doctors and nurses in white coats stood outside the patient room, their expressions tense. The hospital director was bowing, apologizing to Tang Qingyo in a low voice. Tang, I'm truly sorry. It was due to our negligent care. That more. Tsai fell in the bathroom. We will definitely increase the care staff. Absolutely won't let such a mistake happen again. Tang Qingyo's voice was cold as ice. If there's a next time, this hospital doesn't need to stay open anymore. The director repeatedly nodded. Yes, we will definitely be careful. I stood at the corner of the corridor, my fingertips pressing deep into my palm. Clearly her close friend had said, Tsai Ling-fei only had a few scratches, but looking at the current situation, just for some scratches he got an entire building to himself. Now with a small incident, she was so tense she wanted to turn the hospital upside down. The door to the patient room opened. Tsai Ling-fei was leaning weakly against the headboard, his face pale. Eyes red. Tang Qingyo quickly walked over, held his hand. How are you? Does it still hurt anywhere? Tsai Ling-fei with reddened eyes. Choked voice. It's all my fault. Getting hit by a car was one thing, but even falling while taking a bath, making you have no time to be with Shen, what if he misunderstands? I really bring nothing but trouble. Tang Qingyo gently scolded. What are you saying? But her tone was gentle. Just focus on recovering. These days I'll always be here with you. Tsai Ling-fei raised his wet eyes. What about Shen? Tang Qingyo said softly. I'll arrange it. Don't worry. After a pause, she added. We are husband and wife. Isn't it natural for me to be by your side? The blood in my body instantly froze. Truly a married couple. But before I could regain my composure, the next moment, I saw Tang Qingyo remove the prayer beads from her wrist, gently put them on Tsai Ling-fei's wrist. And don't say you bring trouble anymore. These prayer beads have been consecrated. I've worn them for 7 years. Now I give them to you to wear, to protect your safety and good fortune. Tsai Ling-fei was moved to tears. He reached out to hug her. I stood outside the door, my vision blurred. My whole body felt like it was being submerged in the deep sea. Those prayer beads. When I was 18 years old, I knelt after every 3 steps, kowtowed after every 9 steps, from the foot of the mountain all the way up to the temple at the peak to pray. That day it was raining heavily. I knelt until my knees bled. The palms of my hands were scraped raw. Only then did I finally get the abbot to consecrate them. When I returned, Tang Qingyo saw how miserable I looked. Her eyes immediately turned red. She buried herself in my arms. Voice trembling. Yanshu, are you crazy? Who told you to suffer like this? I smiled and put the beads on her wrist. The abbot said these beads will protect you, keep you safe and fortunate, live 100 years. She stood on tiptoe to kiss me. I will wear them for life. For 7 years after that, she indeed never took them off, even at the most formal work occasions, even in the most intimate private moments. Those prayer beads were always on her wrist. But now, she had placed them on another man's wrist with her own hands. My heart felt like it was being cut by a dull knife bit by bit. Pain so intense it was hard to breathe. It turns out her lifetime was only 7 years. I turned and left, my footsteps unsteady, as if walking on cotton. When I got home, it was already dark. I had just entered the door. When my phone vibrated, it was a message from Tang Qingyo. My love. Something urgent came up at the company. I need to go abroad for business for a few days. Don't be mad. I'll make it up to you when I get back. I stared at the screen, my finger hovering over the keyboard. Slightly trembling, I typed a line. Is it going on a business trip for a few days? Or is it taking care of your husband? For a few days, but in the end, I deleted every word. Tears fell onto the screen, blurring my vision. Then I continuously packed my luggage. Documents. Passport. Bank card. Everything that could prove my identity. I put everything in my suitcase. A day later, Tang Qingyo returned. She pushed the door open, one hand holding a large bouquet of roses, the other carrying a strawberry cake, the smile on her face gentle. My love. I'm back. I stood in the middle of the living room, silently looking at her. She came over, placed the flowers and cake on the table, reached out to hug me. These days the work at the company was really too busy. Had to go abroad. No choice. Otherwise I wouldn't have been away from you for so long. Don't be angry. Okay. I slightly tilted my body to avoid her hug. My tone calm. Not angry. You go on with your business. She was a bit startled. Then smiled. Not busy anymore. The necessary work is done. Now it's time to coax you. She took my hand, her eyes lit up with anticipation. I prepared a surprise for you. Without waiting for my response, she pulled me into the car. Half an hour later, the car stopped in front of a theater. I went in, I discovered the entire auditorium had been rented out. There were people all around. Seeing us enter, they buzzed with discussion. Xiao Tang is really generous, renting the whole theater for Mer. Shen, I heard, she specially invited his favorite orchestra from abroad. Today they're performing only for him. That orchestra's price has skyrocketed. Conservative estimate is at least 10 billion for this trip. That's nothing. Xiao Tang is famous for doting on her husband. I heard all these gifts are limited editions. Some were even auctioned at sky-high prices. Yeah. Shen is truly blessed. I stood under the brilliant lights. Around me were people's admiration. For me was Tang Qingyao's gentle smile, but my heart felt as if it had been soaked in ice water. Cold to the point of pain, she gave me magnificent romance and gave someone else her marriage status. She let me live in everyone's admiring eyes, but let another man live on her marriage certificate. I sat in the VIP position in the theater. In my ears the melodious music. Before my eyes was Tang Qingyao's gentle smile. She leaned down, softly asked, "Are you cold?" I shook my head. Instinctively frowned. A sharp pain came from my stomach area. Tang Qingjiao immediately noticed. "Is your stomach uncomfortable?" I frowned and nodded. She spoke with guilt. "Does it hurt a lot? Should we go home?" I shook my head. Tang Qingjiao couldn't persuade me. "All right. I'll call the assistant to bring stomach medicine." And throughout this time, her attention was completely on me, occasionally helping me rub my stomach, softly asking if I wanted hot water, if I wanted a blanket, meticulous as if I were still the treasure in her palm. Half an hour later, someone hurriedly approached, softly called, "Xiao Tang, the items have been brought." Tang Qingjiao and I both turned around. It was Kai Lingfei. He was holding a paper bag, hair slightly wet, face still pale. Tang Qingjiao's expression immediately changed. "Your wound has just healed. Who told you to come here? Why didn't you call Lin Fan?" Sai Lingfei bit his lip, his voice soft. "Assistant Lin is negotiating a project. I was worried that Shen was in too much pain, and afraid you would wait too long. So I came myself." As he spoke, he carefully handed over the paper bag, adding, "It's raining heavily outside. I forgot to bring an umbrella. But don't worry," protected the stomach medicine very carefully. Not a drop of rain touched it. Tang Qingyao's expression changed several times. In the end, she still took the paper bag and handed it to me. "My love, shall I go with you to take the medicine?" I said nothing, took the items to the restroom. When I came out, Tang Qingjiao, who said she would wait outside, had disappeared. I was about to leave, when I heard small sounds coming from the adjacent bathroom. I went over to look. Tang Qingjiao and Sai Lingfei were kissing passionately, Sai Lingfei half pushing, half pretending. "Here? Shen is still waiting for you." Tang Qingyao's voice was full of grievance. "Forget about him for now. You ran through the heavy rain to come here? Do you want to break my heart?" Sai Lingfei's voice carried a choke. "I was just afraid that if you waited too long, Shen would be upset, and you would be upset seeing him upset. I only want you to be happy." Tang Qingjiao seemed even more distressed, kissed him more deeply. Sai Lingfei couldn't help but moan softly. She chuckled, her voice gentle. Feeling it already, Sai Lingfei blushed and pushed her away. "Go take care of me. Shen, I can handle this myself." Tang Qingyao's voice carried a teasing, doting tone. "How will you handle it? This needs a woman's help to feel comfortable." Her hand explored downward. Then came the rustling sound of clothes rubbing, Tang Qingyao's restrained moans, and Sai Lingfei's low, heavy breathing. I stood outside the door. The pain tore at my heart. Tang Qingjiao. Her betrayal of me had reached its limit. My heart felt like it was being ripped in two. The pain was so intense I could barely stand. I staggered backward, accidentally knocked over a decorative vase by the wall. Tang Qingyao's cold voice rang out. "Who's outside?" When she rushed out, the corridor was empty. Only a yellow cat sat in the corner. Cautiously watching her, Sai Lingfei followed. Gently said, "Seems like it was the cat. You should go take care of Mir. Shen now. I'll call a car home later." Tang Qingjiao frowned. "It's raining so hard. What car could you call? Just stay with me." Sai Lingfei bit his lip, softly said, "But Mir." Shen. Tang Qingjiao suddenly grabbed his chin. "Who is my man?" Sai Lingfei whispered. "Your husband. Then he'll listen to you." She took his hand, directly led him back to the concert hall. When she pushed the door open, I was still sitting in my original seat, silently listening to the performance. Tang Qingjiao sighed with relief, pulled Sai Lingfei to sit beside me. Casually explained, "My love, it's raining too hard outside. He also likes the performance, so I let him stay." I hummed in acknowledgement, not exposing her. Throughout the concert, Tang Qingjiao still attentively took care of me. Asked if I was cold, helped me rub my stomach, even softly asked if I wanted to leave early to rest. But I knew her left hand was always tightly intertwined with Sai Lingfei's. I suddenly remembered the first time we held hands. That year I was 16, a snowy winter night. She had secretly climbed over the wall to my house, extended her hand, red from the cold, before me, smiled and said, "Yanshu, my hands are too cold." warm them for me. I blushed as I took her hand. She immediately tightened her fingers, never letting go again. Back then her eyes only held me, but now she held my hand on one side, and someone else's on the other. Teardrop unconsciously slid down. Tang Qingyo noticed immediately. Her fingertip gently wiped my cheek. Ah! I smiled. Softly said, "The music is too moving." Tang Qingyo spoke in a doting tone. "Yes, my love, you're too easily moved." I said nothing. After the performance ended, the crowd gradually dispersed. Tang Qingyo wouldn't let me leave. She had many musical instruments brought out. Piano, cello, violin, each priceless. "You once said you liked these instruments. I paid a high price to buy them all." She smiled and asked if I liked them. The staff beside immediately added, "Here." Shen, Xiao Tang went to great lengths for these instruments. Some had to be purchased at high prices from private collectors. Some had to be borrowed from museums. Si Lingfei stood nearby. A dark glint flashed in his eyes. I curled my lips, just about to speak. "What's this?" Si Lingfei suddenly reached out, curiously pulled a decorative string nearby. "Don't pull that." The staff's expression changed, but it was too late. From above came the rumbling sound of machinery in motion. The next moment, the heavy lighting rig and sound equipment suddenly fell down. In that split-second flash, Tang Qingyo pulled Si Lingfei with one hand, embraced him, rolled to the side, while I stood in place, wide-eyed watching the dark shadow press down on me. Boom! A sound, intense pain descended. I fell into a pool of blood. In my last moment of consciousness was Tang Qingyo's panicked call. "Yanshu," but I knew the person she protected was someone else. I had a very long dream. In the dream, 14-year-old Tang Qingyo still wore her uniform, a bruise at the corner of her mouth, but still smiling freely. I was applying medicine to her, with red eyes scolding her. "Are you crazy? Fighting 30 people alone? Even Superman couldn't fight like that." She didn't care, raising an eyebrow. "Who told those thugs to steal your money? Bullying you is not allowed." The young girl raised her face, her gaze intense and resolute. "As long as I'm here, you're not allowed to be hurt even a bit." I cried in the dream, couldn't help calling her name. Tang Qingyo, but she didn't seem to hear. She held 14-year-old Miss hand and walked away. The image abruptly shifted. Tang Qingyo in reality hugging Si Lingfei, letting me be crushed and injured. Fresh blood stained my vision red. I opened my eyes. Tears soaked the pillow before I could come to my senses. The next moment I saw in the hospital room, Si Lingfei was crying, hugging Tang Qingyo. What to do? It's all my fault. I should have pulled that string. If I hadn't pulled it, Shin would have been hurt. Come on. Tang Qingyo reluctantly wiped his tears. "You really want punishment?" Si Lingfei sobbed and nodded. "Yes. If you do wrong, you should be punished. Otherwise, I can't sleep." Tang Qingyo smiled lightly, pinched his cheek. "Then call me wife." Si Lingfei was stunned. He blushed and called softly, "Wife?" Tang Qingyo stroked his hair, her voice gentle. "Now that you've called me wife, you must listen to me. I have my own way of handling this. You don't need to worry." Si Lingfei could only obediently leave. I silently watched this scene. Unconsciously, my finger knocked against the water glass by the bed. Clang! Tang Qingyo suddenly turned around. Only then discovering I was awake, she quickly walked over, her eyes full of concern. "Yanshu, how are you? Does it hurt anywhere?" She held my hand, her voice regretful. "I'm sorry. It was too chaotic then. I mistook the person." Closed my eyes, not exposing her lie. I just gently asked, "Where is Si Lingfei?" Tang Qingyo's expression changed slightly, thinking I wanted to find Si Lingfei to cause trouble. She immediately explained. "He didn't mean it either, but it was indeed his fault. I've punished him severely already." I recalled the scene of her making Si Lingfei call her wife. Thinking, so that's the punishment, indeed very severe. I said nothing, didn't angrily ask her why she mistook the person, nor did I painfully reproach her for playing favorites. I just calmly said, "I'm hungry." Tang Qingyo was stunned. She looked into my eyes, finally realizing something was off. I was too calm like a dead lake. She opened her mouth, about to say something, but I repeated once more, "I'm hungry," completely breaking her train of thought. She could only suppress her uneasiness. Gently nod. "My love, I'll go buy food right away. Wait for me." "Okay." She grabbed her car keys and hurriedly left. The moment the door closed, my tears flowed uncontrollably, but I immediately wiped them dry. Love is passionate. Betrayed is unwilling to be quiet. But now I no longer love or hate Tang Qingyo. Tang Qingyo canceled all her work, didn't leave my side for half a step as she cared for me in the hospital. She personally fed me meals, helped me apply medicine, even when waking in the middle of the night. She had to check if I had kicked off the blanket, but I remained calm all along, until the day of discharge. Tang Qingyo thought I was too depressed. She specially organized a big party to celebrate my recovery. The banquet hall was extremely luxurious. Everyone was admiring. Xiao Tang truly dotes on her husband to the bone. I heard all these gifts are limited editions, some were even auctioned at sky-high prices. Shen is truly blessed. I stood among the crowd, not a smile on my face. Tang Qingyo finally couldn't bear it, pulled me to a corner, softly asked. Still angry, she stroked the inside of my wrist, her voice conciliatory. I swear that moment I really mistook the person. "What do you need me to do to forgive me?" "My love. Tell me, I'll do anything." "Okay." I looked at her, suddenly smiled. Alright. Fire Xi Lingfei. Tang Qingyao's expression changed slightly. Her voice softened a few notches. His family situation is difficult. His parents are ill. Why be so ruthless? I silently looked at her. She just said she would do anything. Once it concerned Xi Lingfei, she immediately changed her mind. I was about to speak. Tang Qingyao's phone suddenly rang. It was Kai Lingfei. On the other end, he was sobbing. Xiao Tang, save me. Someone found a gang of thugs to beat me up. Tang Qingyao's expression suddenly changed. What did you say? Where are you now? But the call was cut off. Tang Qingyao's face changed color. She immediately called back, but couldn't connect anymore. She suddenly looked at me. Her eyes changed from worry to suspicion, then to suppressed anger. Confess. Where is Xi Lingfei? Her voice choked, still trying to control herself. My heart contracted violently. She didn't believe me. Without even verifying, she had already determined it was my doing. I said with a trembling voice, "You suspect me?" She rubbed her eyebrow. Not suspicion. It's just that he just said on the phone someone wanted to harm him. My voice trembled. Is that so? You think I did it? Tang Qingyao was silent for a moment. Softly said, I didn't say that. It's just that the situation is urgent now. I suddenly laughed, but my eyes were cold. He just made one phone call, and you're already this worried. Tang Qingyao, what exactly is your relationship with him? She frowned even more tightly. This is a matter of life and death. Do you have to be jealous at this moment? My voice fell as light as a feather. Jealous? You think this is jealousy? Tang Qingyao took a deep breath, tried to soften her tone. Yanshu, there really is nothing between him and me, but now he might be in trouble. Tell me, was it you? I interrupted her. It was me. I say for the last time, I don't know where he is, nor did I ask anyone to touch him. Tang Qingyao stared at me, the worry in her eyes becoming more and more evident. Time passed second by second. Xi Lingfei's phone still couldn't be reached. Finally, she completely lost patience. One hand gripped my wrist tightly, the strength so great it almost crushed my bones. Yanshu, I told you I've already punished him. Why did you still send people to beat him up? I don't have time to play games with you. Tell me where Xi Lingfei is. My face paled with pain, but I still stubbornly repeated. I don't know. No matter how many times you ask, I don't know. Tang Qingyao completely lost her temper. Shen Yanshu, I feel like I've never known you. She violently pushed me away. I staggered back several steps. My waist hit hard against the edge of the table. My forehead struck the sharp edge of a decorative item. Fresh blood immediately poured out. Around us a series of shouts. Xiao Tang, here? Shen is injured, but Tang Qingyao acted as if she didn't hear. She didn't turn back. Walked straight out. While making a call, giving harsh orders, immediately checked the surveillance cameras. Find the last location Lingfei appeared. I leaned against the table edge to slowly stand. Fresh blood flowing down from my forehead, but I felt no pain, compared to the pain of my heart being torn apart. This wound was nothing. I stared blankly in the direction Tang Qingyao had left. Suddenly laughed. How could she care about me? Now in her heart and eyes there was only Xi Lingfei. Just like in the past, her heart and eyes had only me. People gathered around in panic, wanting to take me to the hospital, but I gently shook my head, pushed away all helping hands, walked out of the banquet hall alone. Just as I stepped out, behind me suddenly came a loud noise. I turned my head to see the gold-plated sign engraved with Tang Qingyao Love Shen Yanshu, one life, one lifetime, fell heavily to the ground, broken into two halves. I looked at that sign, suddenly burst into laughter, laughing and laughing. Tears rolled down. Tang Qingyao, your one life, one lifetime turned out to be so short. I returned home alone, silently treated the wound on my forehead, then began packing my belongings. Cufflinks, watches Tang Qingyao gave me, the cards she wrote by hand, albums of our photos together. Everything related to her was packed into cardboard boxes, thrown one by one into the trash can downstairs. After throwing the last box, the night wind carried snowflakes blowing past. My face as I stood under the street light suddenly felt amused. Memories once regarded as treasures, now just waste in a pile of garbage. The moment I turned around, a sack was suddenly thrown over my head. Before I could struggle, a violent pain shot through my neck. My vision darkened, completely lost consciousness. When I woke up, I found myself still covered in the sack, hands tied behind my back, mouth stuffed tightly with a cloth. Through the gap in the sack, I saw Xi Lingfei hugging Tang Qingyao. Sitting on a sofa in an elevated position, bodyguards stood all around. Bodyguard respectfully reported, Xiao, we've caught the person. This is the leader of the gang that Mir Shen hired to bully Mir Xi Lingfei said with a trembling voice. Qingyao, let's just forget it. You arrive in time. I wasn't really hurt. Tang Qingyao laughed coldly. No way. I can't bear to touch Yanshu, but he dared to bully you. I have to give him an explanation. Since this is someone he hired, he'll kill the chicken to scare the monkey, so he won't dare do it again. My body went cold. I finally understood. It was all staged by Xi Lingfei. After pretending to be assaulted by thugs, he had bribed people to capture me, deceived Tang Qingyao into thinking I was the mastermind behind his bullying, just to make Tang Qingyao unwittingly torture me. I tried to struggle, wanted to call Tang Qingyao's name, but my mouth was stuffed tight, could only make weak whimpering sounds. Xi Lingfei sighed with apparent softness. Go easy. After all, it's Mir Shen's person. Tang Qingyao's eyes were ice cold. Anyone who dares to bully you, I will make them wish they were dead. The next moment I was dragged onto a high platform. Below was a swimming pool over 10 meters deep. The cold water surface reflected the pale light. I was covered in the sack, tied with ropes, pushed hard from the edge of the high platform. Splash! The cold water immediately flooded the sack. The impact force was so strong, it felt like a sledgehammer had hit my internal organs. Water rushed in through my nose and mouth, making me choke to the point of seeing stars. My lungs felt like they were being pierced by thousands of needles, pain making me instinctively curl up. Help! The weak cry for help was swallowed by the water. The sack soaked with water, becoming increasingly heavy, like a 1,000-pound stone pulling me down. I struggled desperately, but the ropes only wound tighter, constricting until I could barely breathe. Just as I was about to lose consciousness, the rope suddenly tightened. I was violently pulled out of the water. Coughing violently, water mixed with blood sprayed out from my lungs. Before I could breathe, my body was pushed down again. Once, twice, 3 times. Each fall like being thrown into an ice cave. Each pull up like having my skin peeled and flesh torn. Repeated again and again. Living worse than death, my conscience became increasingly hazy. In my ears there was only a buzzing sound, my lungs burning with pain, as if about to burst at any moment. I don't know how many times I was pulled up. Sai Lingfei finally couldn't bear it and called to stop. Enough, Qingyao. Don't torture him anymore. Tang Qingyao laughed coldly again. Not yet done. She took an iron rod from a bodyguard's hand, walked up to me. Dare to touch my person and you must pay the price. The first blow landed heavily on my back. My entire body arched upward, like a shrimp being electrocuted. Fierce pain erupted from my spine, spreading instantly to all 4 limbs and every inch of my body. I bit down hard on the cloth in my mouth, still let out a groan of agony. Blow after blow, without any mercy, each strike as if wanting to break my bones, rupture my internal organs. I could feel warm liquid spilling from the corner of my mouth, flowing down my chin, dripping to the ground. Over 10 blows, she dealt them with her own hands. By the end, I no longer felt pain. My consciousness began to blur, waves of darkness before my eyes. My body felt like it had been torn into pieces, like being thrown into a meat grinder. When the final blow fell, I collapsed limply like a torn rag doll on the ground. The pool of blood beneath me kept spreading, soaking my clothes, staining the ground red. Crack! She raised her high heel, grinding hard on my exposed fingers. The sound of finger bones breaking was clear, pain so intense my whole body convulsed, but I couldn't make a miserable cry. Only then did Tang Qingyao retract her foot. Satisfied, turned to lean in Xai Lingfei's arms. Are you afraid now? All right. It's over. She waved at the bodyguards, like dealing with a piece of trash. Throw this person back. After speaking, she hugged Xai Lingfei, left without looking back, leather shoes treating in the pool of blood, making a sticky sound. The cloth in my mouth finally loosened. I used my last bit of strength, hoarsely called her name. Tang Qingyao, but my voice was as feeble as a candle in the wind, had consumed all my strength. Her footsteps suddenly faltered, but Xai Lingfei promptly said he wasn't feeling well, gently leaned on her shoulder. Qingyao. My head hurts so much. Tang Qingyao immediately withdrew her gaze, no longer paying attention to the illusion just now, worriedly supporting him. I'll take you to the hospital right away. She walked away firmly, never looking back. I watched her back. Suddenly smile. If only she had turned around to look once. Just once. She would know the person she had tortured half to death was the one she once cherished in the palm of her hand, but she did. Her eyes had been completely occupied by Xai Lingfei. While I was still conscious, I found myself thrown on the villa floor. Soaking wet, bones feeling like they had been ground to pieces, I struggled to crawl up. Each movement, the wounds on my back hurt as if being torn open. My fingers were swollen beyond recognition, the broken bones showing a terrifying purple color. The phone in my pocket vibrated. I tremblingly took it out, saw 2 messages. The first was from Tang Qingyao. My love, before was my fault. I shouldn't have gotten angry with you. I just didn't want you to do wrong. These days I'm at the hospital taking care of Xai Lingfei, so I won't come home. After is better, I'll come back to you. I stared at the screen and laughed through tears. How ridiculous. She tortured me half to death, yet could still gently call me my love. She didn't even notice I had disappeared. The second message was a notification of successful cancellation of personal information. Here, Shen, your application to cancel personal information and change your name has been approved. Effective from today. I gripped the phone tightly, knuckles turning white. Finally, I could leave. I struggled to stand up, changed into clean clothes, then picked up the suitcase it prepared, everything that belonged to me in this house. I took all of it, except for 2 things. First was the watch Tang Qingyao gave me at 18. Inside the watch was a small tracking device. When giving it to me, she said, Yanshu, I want to always know what you're doing. At that time I found it sweet, now I just find it ironic. She probably hasn't looked at it for a long time. But if she checks, she'll know. It was her own hands that pushed me down into the pool multiple times. It was her own hands that beat me with 99 strikes. It was her own hands that crushed my foot bones. Second were the love letters she wrote when pursuing me. A thick stack. On the yellowing paper still remained the ink from her teenage years. Yanshu, I will love you for life. Only love you. I gently traced those words, suddenly remembered when I was 18. She with red eyes pushed me against the wall, saying, Yanshu, I can't live without you. Those vows that once moved me to insomnia now looking back seem absurd. I placed the watch and love letters on the coffee table, then without hesitation turned to leave. Before going out the door, I threw my phone in the trash, burying all of the past. From now on in this world, there would no longer be a Shen Yanshu who would shed tears for Tang Qingyao. When the plane took off, I looked at the city lights through the small window growing smaller. Vaguely saw 18-year-old Tang Qingyao standing in the clouds smiling at me. The next moment, fierce pain erupted from my ribs. The illusion disappeared. I bit my lip. The taste of blood filled my mouth. Sir, do you need help? The woman sitting beside me put down her magazine. She keenly noticed the cold sweat on my temples. I shook my head, burying my face deeper into the scarf. It still had the musty smell of the basement, a cheap item I randomly bought in the airport restroom. I'm fine. Just a bit airsick. Sai Yuanyuan looked at this young man who radiated such disharmony. He wore a camel-colored coat, clearly one size too large. The ring finger of his left hand had marks from long-term ring wearing, but his right hand was strangely twisted. What worried one the most was, even in the 26-degree cabin, he kept shivering. Sai Yuanyuan handed me a tissue. A doctor. Your complexion is terrible. When I took the tissue, she noticed the bruise on the inside of my wrist. It was a mark that only comes from professional restraint. Sai Yuanyuan realized this was not an ordinary victim of domestic violence. Thank you. I clutched the tissue in my palm, but didn't use it. I couldn't leave any trace. Especially now, but once the plane landed, even if Tang Qingyao turned the world upside down, she wouldn't find me. Suddenly, a sharp pain shot up from my stomach. My vision blurred. I felt warm liquid rushing from my nose. I instinctively raised my hand to touch it. My fingertips touched fresh red mucus. Sai Yuanyuan hurriedly unfastened her seatbelt. Flight attendant. Urgent medical assistance needed here. In my blurred vision, I saw the slender fingers of the woman, quickly unbuttoning my collar. How strange. I thought of Tang Qingyao's hands at this moment. Last night those hands were just like this, unbuttoning Sai Lingfi's shirt. I felt myself being lifted by countless hands, like a fallen leaf drifting on the sea surface during a storm. I recalled the feeling of being pushed into the swimming pool, the piercing pain when cold water filled my lungs, the burning sensation when the sack rubbed against my cheek. Most painful was Tang Qingyao's words, "Dare to touch my person, you must pay the price." Each word like a dull knife cutting into my heart. Before losing consciousness completely, I heard my own hoarse laughter. How ironic. The ribs broken by Tang Qingyao were now piercing my lungs. She always said she would protect me from any harm. In the end, she became the one who hurt me the most. The lights flickered above in the plane cabin. Sai Yuanyuan's blouse was drenched with sweat. This stranger was gradually losing his life in her hands, and an indescribable intuition made her unable to stand by. The flight attendant softly asked the doctor, "Is an emergency landing needed?" In my delirium, I suddenly convulsed violently. Sai Yuanyuan held me firmly, turned to the flight attendant. "Contact the airport to prepare an ambulance. The patient has multiple fractures and internal bleeding. Needs..." Before finishing her sentence, her wrist was suddenly grabbed. Those cloudy eyes miraculously focused for a moment. Sai Yuanyuan saw them filled with frightening determination. "No! Hospital." Each word I spoke, I came with bloody bubbles from the corner of my mouth. "Please." Sai Yuanyuan was stunned. She felt compelled to nod. "I have a recovery center in the suburbs." I woke up to the smell of disinfectant. Sunlight through thin curtains fell on the blanket. I stared blankly at the ceiling. For a moment couldn't tell if this was reality or a dream, until a clear female voice sounded beside me. "Awake now." I startled, turning my head to face captivating eyes. The woman held a medical chart. Seeing me awake, she casually folded it, her tone calm. "You had internal bleeding and fainted on the plane. I provided emergency treatment. How do you feel now?" By instinct, I touched my stomach. The pain had reduced significantly, but there was still a dull ache under the skin. I opened my mouth. Voice hoarse. "Thank you." The woman nodded, handed me a cup of warm water. "Sai Yuanyuan. A doctor. This is my private recovery center. Very safe." The cup was warm. My fingertips unconsciously caressed the cup's rim. I lowered my eyes, silent for a moment. Softly said, "My name is Arthur." After that, I stayed at the recovery center. Sai Yuanyuan came to check on me every day, but besides the necessary medical questions, she never pried into my personal matters, until one day while changing my dressing, the nurse accidentally dropped the tray. The sound of metal instruments hitting the floor made me jump, reflexively curling up. Sai Yuanyuan's hand paused in midair. She observed my instinctive posture protecting my ribs. Her eyes swept over the unhealed bruises on my wrist. Suddenly speaking, these injuries weren't caused by an accident. I held my breath. Sai Yuanyuan didn't press for answers, just calmly pulled up my collar. Her voice gentle. "If you don't want to talk, you don't have to answer, but if needed, the lawyers and police here can help you." I gripped the blanket tightly and shook my head. Sai Yuanyuan said nothing more. As she turned to leave, I suddenly called out, "Thank you." She turned back to see me, my pale face with a very faint smile. "But really, it's not necessary." Life at the recovery center was peaceful to the point of feeling unreal. My body gradually recovered. Sometimes I went to the garden to sunbathe. One afternoon, I passed by the meeting room, accidentally overheard Xia Yuanyuan arguing with someone. The other party insisted that at this price we cannot compromise, but the market data clearly shows their value is at least 30% higher than actual. I stopped, as if guided by a ghost. I pushed the door open. All eyes turned toward me. Xia Yuanyuan frowned. Arthur, I pressed my lips, pointed to the financial report on the screen. After a moment I spoke. The cash flow prediction on page 3 has a problem. They've hidden part of the debt. If calculated this way, the actual surplus value should increase by 15%. The meeting room was dead silent. Not a sound. Xia Yuanyuan looked at me for a few seconds, then pushed the documents over, continuing to speak. The next day, Xia Yuanyuan pushed a contract in front of me. The acquisition deal has been resolved. If you're interested, you could join my company as a strategic advisor. I was surprised. Suddenly smiled. Aren't you afraid I might be an industrial spy? Xia Yuanyuan leaned against the edge of the table. She looked at me, her tone calm. I checked your background. Of course, I found nothing, but my intuition tells me you are trustworthy. In the VIP hospital room, the smell of disinfectant was overpowered by the scent of lilies nearby. Tang Qingyo sat beside the bed, holding a bowl of chicken soup still steaming. The spoon gently touched the edge of the bowl, making a clear sound. Lingfei, have another sip. She brought the spoon to Xia Lingfei's lips, her voice so gentle it could drip water. I simmered it for 4 hours, removed all the oil. Xia Lingfei's pale face flushed, drinking small sips from her hand. His eyelashes under the light cast a small shadow. Qinjiao, you're here taking care of me. Wouldn't Shen be, he won't mind. Tang Qingjiao interrupted him, her tone determined as if convincing herself. Yanshu was very obedient, but when she put down the bowl, the porcelain spoon hit the glass table, making a sudden ting sound. This sound was like a thorn in her temple. It had been 3 days without news from me. She took out her phone, the screen lit up. It showed a picture of me sleeping handsomely. 8:30. My love, you'll be home late. 10:47. Still angry. Next day 9:15. Yanshu, answer the phone. The last message stopped this morning, a lonely green bubble hanging at the top of the chat. I'm going to make a call. She suddenly stood up, her dress swept over the stool, knocking it over. At the end of the corridor, in the fire escape stairwell, Tang Qingyo pressed the call button for the 3rd time. The robotic female voice in Chinese and English repeated the phrase, "The person you are calling is unavailable." This sound in the empty stairwell created an eerie echo. She called her assistant again. Xia Lin, go to the villa now. She hesitated for a moment, not saying it was to confirm my whereabouts, only saying to check the condition of the villa locks. About half an hour later, the assistant sent a message. The condition of the locks. About half an hour later, the assistant sent a message, saying, Xiao Tang, the villa security system shows everything is normal. Just that, the kitchen waste disposal unit hasn't been activated in the past few days. The smart housekeeper's records show the last use was the day you left home. Tang Qingjia's breath paused for a moment. I'm clean. Absolutely never leave food waste overnight. The fingerprint lock emitted the familiar beep sound. The motion sensor lights in the corridor turned on, but ahead was a darkness with no waiting light. Even since she opened the door until now, the villa remained as silent as death. Yanshu, her voice in the open space of the living room created an echo. No one answered. The faint scent of roses in the air had completely dissipated, replaced by a cold emptiness. Tang Qingyo stood before the master bedroom door. Heart inexplicably beat very fast. Panic spread within her. When she slowly pushed the door open, the scene before her eyes made her involuntarily widen them. The wardrobe was wide open. My clothes were all gone. The photo frame that used to be by the bedside had also disappeared. Now only a lonely frame remained. Her heart sank heavily. She quickly walked to the study, pulled open the drawer. Passport, Idaho, bank card, everything that could prove my existence had vanished. Only 2 items remained on the coffee table, a watch and a stack of yellowed love letters. Tang Qingyo trembled, picked up the watch. This is what she gave me on my 18th birthday. For so many years, I had never taken it off, and now I was nowhere to be found. This watch was left behind lonely here. Tang Qingyo couldn't believe the worst possibility. She took out her phone, called her assistant again. Now immediately go find Shen Yanshu's whereabouts. Mobilize all connections, even if you have to dig 3 feet of earth. You must find him. The other end immediately replied. In an instant, by her ear was only the sound of keyboard typing. Tang Qingyo had never felt time pass so slowly. The next second, her assistant's hesitant voice came through. Xiao Tang, Shen's personal information has been cancelled. Cancelled personal information? Why would I suddenly decide to cancel my personal information during the time she was absent? What exactly had happened? Tang Qingyo's eyelids trembled. Her palm unknowingly tightened. Turning pale, the sharp pain from her heart reminded her, right? There's still the watch. There might be clues in the watch about where I went. She suddenly turned around, rushed to the study, opened the surveillance footage, but the surveillance image that appeared before her eyes made Tang Qingyo's mind go blank. In the image, Xia Lingfei stood by the edge of the high platform, a cold smile at the corner of his mouth, while the person in the sack was struggling. The The moment the fabric slipped down, she clearly saw that face. Tang Qingyao's breath stopped. Pale face, disheveled hair, blood oozing from the corner of the mouth. It was Shen Yanshu. I looked toward her, lips trembling, seeming to want to say something, but the next second was pushed down by her own hands, the sound of water splashing in the monitoring room. By Tang Qingyao's ear was only a deafening ringing. She gripped the watch tightly, her knuckles turning white. A sweet metallic taste rose in her throat. Suddenly, Tang Qingyao seemed to realize something. She dragged the progress bar. Abruptly her fingers stopped. The smile at the corner of Sai Lingfei's mouth was so clear, as if mocking Tang Qingyao standing in front of the screen. She stared at this face that had become unfamiliar, her breathing gradually quickening. At this moment the phone rang again. The assistant's voice came from the other end. "Xiao Tang, the hospital over there," but she rudely cut him off. "The car," her voice hoarse beyond recognition. "I'm going right over." The tires made a piercing sound on the ground. "Don't worry. He can't trace it back. I've completely destroyed that idiot's medical records. The surveillance cameras at the villa have also been taken care of. Who told him to be difficult? He deserved it." Each word like poisoned needles, destroying the last bit of self-deception hope of Tang Qingyao. The hospital room door was pushed hard. Tang Qingyao stood at the door, her face frighteningly grim. Sai Lingfei's phone fell to the ground with a thud. "Qingyao." Tang Qingyao's voice was terribly hoarse, like a demon crawling out from hell. "How did you know it was Shen Yanshu?" Sai Lingfei's face immediately turned pale. His fingers unconsciously gripped the bedsheet tightly. "I don't know what you're talking about." She grabbed his wrist firmly, with strength so great it nearly crushed his bones. "The person in that sack, you knew early on it was him, didn't you?" Sai Lingfei's tears immediately welled up. "The person in that sack, you knew early on it was him, didn't you?" Sai Lingfei's tears immediately welled up. "Qingyao, I hurt." Tang Qingyao acted as if she didn't hear, her bloodshot eyes staring at him. "Answer me," he sobbed, his voice broken. "I just loved you too much. I was afraid he would take you away. I had no other choice." Tang Qingyao's gusted gaze fell upon Sai Lingfei. Immediately after she released her hand, as if she had just touched something filthy, her eyes darted around for a moment, finally stopping on the fruit knife on the bedside table. The blade reflected cold light mirroring her distorted face. It also reflected Lingfei's suddenly terrified eyes. "You can't." He backed away in panic. The IV stand crashed to the floor. In Tang Qingyao's office, the light was cold white. Before her were expanded documents. They included how for a long time, he had secretly driven a wedge between her and me. Among them was also a stack of documents provided by private detectives. Images, audio recordings, transfer records, even including the testimony of the original thugs. It was Ms. Sai who hired us, told us to perform an act. The money was paid in full, told us to pretend to bully him, actually had no intention of really doing it. He said he just needed Xiao Tang to believe there would be additional compensation afterward. Tang Qingyao's eyes churned with complex emotions. From beginning to end, it was all Sai Lingfei's direction, and she had pushed the person she loved deep into the abyss. When Sai Lingfei was brought into the office by security, his face still had that coquettish smile. "Qingyao, why did you look for me so urgently?" Before he finished, a stack of documents whipped hard into his face. "What is this?" Tang Qingyao's voice was cold as ice. Papers scattered all over the floor. Sai Lingfei lowered his head and glimpsed the photos and bank statements. His smile instantly froze. He panicked and sat down to pick them up. "I can explain these things. Someone must be framing me. It must be Shen Yanshu. He hates me." Tang Qingyao stared at the person before her, her tone surprisingly calm. She took a recorder from the drawer, pressed play. "That idiot deserved it." "Who told him to be difficult?" Sai Lingfei's voice echoed in the office. Jarring and venomous, his face immediately paled. Sai Lingfei tried to force a smile. He threw the documents to the side, slowly approached Tang Qingyao. "Qingyao, you believe me? I really didn't do those things." Faced with Tang Qingyao's cold gaze, his breathing became increasingly rapid. "You believe me? I love you so much." Tang Qingyao asked dubiously. "You love me?" Reaching out to grasp Sai Lingfei's chin. "You did such things. Your mouth still says you love me. Don't you feel sick?" Sai Lingfei suddenly raised his head. The weakness in his eyes completely disappeared, replaced by distorted hatred. "So you think you're a good person?" "Tang Qingyao, you approached me first. You treated me as a substitute. You made me think you loved me." He struggled free from her restraint, pointed at her nose and laughed coldly. "You're blind not to see who has real feelings and who's fake. Now playing the faithful role for who to see. Shen Yanshu doesn't want you anymore. He would rather give up everything to run far away than look at you one more time." Tang Qingyao's pupils suddenly contracted. Her chest felt like it was hit by a sledgehammer. Sai Lingfei laughed even more mockingly. "Do you know what he left behind before leaving? That watch was from you, right? You've also seen the surveillance camera footage inside. Each blow wasn't delivered by your own hands." The air was silent for a few seconds. Tang Qingyao suddenly laughed. She slowly stood up, walked up to Sai Lingfei, reached out to caress his face. The gesture gentle like a lover, but her eyes frighteningly cold. "You're right. I was blind, so now it's time to fix the mistake. Si Lingfei had no time to react. The office door opened again. 2 security guards walked straight to him, used rough rope to tie him tightly. Si Lingfei's eyes widened. Tang Qingyo, you can't treat me like this. I can return that money to you. Tang Qingyo stepped back, looking at him expressionlessly. Both his hands now cuffed. She leaned down to his ear, her voice light as a snake flicking its tongue. You think I care about that bit of money? I will make you taste what it means to wish you were dead. Tang Qingyo stood in the mental hospital corridor. She still held the stack of documents. The documents detailing all of Si Lingfei's crimes over the years. Embezzlement. Commercial fraud. Intentional injury. Even including how he had planned to frame me. The patient room door opened. Si Lingfei huddled in the corner, his face still bandaged. Those were wounds from self-harm. He lay curled up in the corner, his face still bandaged. Those were wounds from self-harm. He looked up and saw Tang Qingyo. Hope flashed in his eyes. Qingyo, you've come to save me. Right? He crawled a few steps, but his body was too weak, not strong enough to complete these movements. Si Lingfei collapsed onto the floor, filthy all over, his fingers still gripping Tang Qingyo's dress hem. Tang Qingyo didn't answer, just slowly sat down in front of him, looking down at him from above. Si Lingfei, do you know why I came here? He trembled and shook his head. I know I was wrong. I was really wrong. Tang Qingyo laughed coldly once, threw the documents down in front of him. Is this what you call knowing you were wrong? Si Lingfei lowered his head and glimpsed the contents. His face immediately paled. He frantically shook his head. No, this wasn't me. Someone is framing me. Qingyo, you believe me? You believe me? Tang Qingyo leaned down and grabbed his chin, with strength so great it nearly crushed his bones. You think I still believe your lies? Then she released her hand, took out a handkerchief to wipe her hands, face full of disgust. This action stabbed deeply into Si Lingfei's eyes. He suddenly lunged at Tang Qingyo, but was kicked away by her. He sat sprawled on the floor, screamed frantically. Tang Qingyo, you can't treat me like this. I love you so much. Everything I did was for you. Tang Qingyo's eyes completely cooled. You for your own personal gain. Destroyed everything between me and Yanshu. This was for me. Well then, it's my turn to do a few things for you. She turned and nodded to the doctor at the door. From today, his treatment plan will be set by me. The doctor respectfully handed over a new medical chart. Tang Qingyo turned to the first page. It read, Treatment Plan for Patient 0487. Electroshock therapy, controlled by medication. Lifelong confinement. Si Lingfei frantically struggled. No, you can't do this to me. Tang Qingyo, I curse you to never receive Shen Yanshu's forgiveness. Tang Qingyo left without looking back. From the patient room, behind came Si Lingfei's heartbreaking cries. She stood in the corridor, her eyes dark and inscrutable. Her assistant carefully approached. Xiao Tang, as per your instructions, the Xi family assets have been completely frozen. Si Lingfei's parents are also under travel restrictions, ensuring they cannot travel, ensuring they cannot find patient Xi. Tang Qingyo softly hummed in acknowledgement. Leak his embezzlement story to the press. I want him completely disgraced. The assistant nodded and left. Tang Qingyo extinguished her cigarette, looked out at the night sky through the window. She knew such revenge was far from compensating for the damage I had suffered, but at least she would not allow Si Lingfei the opportunity to harm anyone else. Tang Qingyo stood before the villa. That was once her and my shared home. The surveillance video in hand had been watched by her countless times, but the surveillance records had been completely erased by Si Lingfei. No useful clues remained. Her voice was hoarse, her eyes full of blood vessels. Keep searching. Even if we have to turn all of Beijing upside down, we must find him. The assistant tremblingly presented a stack of documents. Xiao Tang, here? Shen's personal information has been cancelled. His immigration records have also been deleted. Tang Qingyo suddenly clenched her fist. She seemed to go mad, mobilizing every connection, even sparing no expense in offering large rewards. But I had vanished from the world without a trace. She had been to every place we had ever visited. The high school, the amusement park, the temple on the mountain peak, even the city where I had studied abroad. But each time she returned empty-handed, she began to dream frequently. In her dreams I stood in a pool of blood coldly looking at her. Tang Qingyo, your own hands pushed me into hell. When she startled awake, cold sweat soaked her clothes. Her heart ached as if a piece had been gouged out. Tang Qingyo began to expand her search range. Even the company's work was left behind. She took planes back and forth between countries, hoping to find a familiar figure. A month later, Tang Qingyo stood on Avenue Montaigne. Suddenly, the corner of her eye caught a familiar silhouette. Tall stature, the walking gait, very similar to the person in her dreams. Her heart beat fast. Almost instinctively she chased after him. Shen Yanshu. The man didn't turn around. Continued walking. She accelerated, reached out to grab his wrist, but right after that, a black car stopped in front of him. The car door opened, a beautiful woman took his hand, leaned her head to say something by his ear, making him smile slightly. When he turned his face, it was a completely unfamiliar face. Tang Qingyo stood stunned. The smile, He turned his face. It was a completely unfamiliar face. Tang Qingyo stood stunned in place. Not him, just a similar silhouette. She dropped her hand in a daze, her throat tightening. The phone rang. Her assistant's cautious voice came through. "Xiao Tang, the evening party is about to start." Tang Qingyo closed her eyes, hung up, turned to leave, and just at the moment she turned, in the cafe at the street corner, I slowly put down my cup, my eyes glancing briefly at her back. Xia Yuanyuan looked in the direction of my gaze. "Is that her?" I withdrew my gaze, nodded slightly, then stood up, said to Xia Yuanyuan, Let's go the party." I stood before a full-length mirror. The corner of my lips curved into a very faint arc. Tang Qingyo would also be attending this private evening party. Xia Yuanyuan's voice came from behind. She passed over a glass of champagne. "Your attention is always on her. Did you come here because of her?" I took the glass. My fingertip lightly tapped the rim, making a clear sound. "You're overthinking." At the party venue, I held a glass of champagne, skillfully chatting with European financial group representatives, fluent French and sharp commercial insights, making me the center of attention. When Tang Qingyo entered the hall, her eyes were instinctively drawn to that back, the gestures emanating a familiar sharpness. She frowned slightly, about to approach. The other person just happened to turn and pass by her shoulder. In that moment, she smelled a very faint scent of roses. Tang Qingyo suddenly turned around, but that figure had disappeared into the crowd. She stopped a waiter, her voice tense. "Who was that gentleman just now?" The waiter smiled. "That was Mir Arthur, founder of the emerging investment company." As Tang Qingyo's pupils suddenly contracted, she whispered, "He has clearly the initials of Yanshu." She dared not believe, yet couldn't help hoping, that I had returned. This is the third time Xia Yuanyuan had noticed my unusual interest in Tang Group. She stood at the office door, looking at me, my slender back rigid under the desk lamp, the pen in my hand making sharp marks on paper, not like analyzing data, more like dissecting an enemy. Looking at Tang Group's report again, Xia Yuanyuan brought in hot milk, deliberately making her footsteps a little louder. My finger trembled imperceptibly. Quickly closing the folder, just routine analysis. I accepted the milk. The corner of my lips curved into a perfect arc, researching future competitors in advance. Xia Yuanyuan didn't expose my lie. Although in the past 3 months, the frequency with which I studied Tang Group far exceeded any other company, sometimes even staying up until dawn. But whenever she tried to ask, I quickly changed the subject, especially after the one-sided encounter in Paris. In the end, she just put the cup down. "Don't stay up too late. There's an early meeting tomorrow." I nodded, my eyes already back on the stack of documents. When Xia Yuanyuan closed the office door, she heard the rustling sound, pen on paper, like the embodiment of some obsession. At 5:17 am, a piercing cry broke the stillness of the villa. Xia Yuanyuan jumped out of bed. Doctor's instinct made her instantly alert. The sound came from my bedroom. She didn't even have time to put on slippers before running over, pushed the door open. The scene before her eyes made her heart tighten. I was huddled in the corner, trapped between the headboard and wall, both hands choking my own neck, face as white as paper, my nightshirt soaked with cold sweat, sticking to my gaunt spine, my whole body shaking like a leaf in the wind. What frightened Xia Yuanyuan most were my eyes. Dilated pupils, blurry gaze, as if looking at a horrifying scene not present here. "Arthur." Xia Yuanyuan knelt on one knee in front of me, not daring to touch me hastily. "Look at me. Can you hear what I'm saying?" No reaction. My breathing became increasingly rapid, lips starting to turn blue. A Q-pieced attack. Xia Yuanyuan quickly made her diagnosis. She gently took hold of my wrist, touching cold skin sticky with sweat. "Follow my breathing." She placed my hand on her chest, to feel her breathing rhythm. Slowly now. Xia Yuanyuan deliberately slowed her breathing, her chest rising and falling steadily. She could feel, on the man's wrist was a ring of uneven scars. 1 minute. 2 minutes. My breathing finally began to synchronize with hers. My pupils regained focus. When I recognized the person before me, I hurriedly withdrew my hand. I said hoarsely, "I'm fine," then reflexively pulled down my nightshirt sleeve, covering my wrist. "Sorry, I just had a nightmare." Xia Yuanyuan didn't expose this clumsy lie. She stood up and poured a cup of warm water, casually adding to the aroma diffuser nearby a few drops of nerve-relaxing essential oil. "Drink some water first." She handed it to me, deliberately maintaining a safe distance. "I'll get a dry towel for you." When she returned from the bathroom, I had moved to the single chair by the window, both hands holding the cup, looking out at the night outside the window. Moonlight sketched the outline of my profile, eyelashes casting small shadows under my eyes. Xia Yuanyuan gently placed the towel on my shoulder, sat down in the armchair opposite. "Want to talk about that nightmare?" she asked very naturally, as if just discussing tomorrow's weather. My finger unconsciously traced the rim of the cup. After prolonged silence, I suddenly spoke. "Do you know what it feels like when people drown?" Xia Yuanyuan was slightly startled. My voice was very soft, as if telling someone else's story. "First water enters the nose, it burns like fire, then the lungs begin to contract. You want to breathe but can only inhale more water. The scariest thing is, you can clearly feel life leaving, yet can do nothing about it." Xia Yuanyuan noticed the ring finger of my left hand was abnormally twisted. It was a bone fracture not treated promptly. I dream of myself Suddenly I stood up, walked to the desk, took out a craft paper envelope from the bottom drawer. You should see this. See you anyone took the file folder? Heavy. What she poured out was a stack of photos, medical records, and a coffee-stained marriage certificate copy. So this is your original name. Sai Yuanyuan's words reached her lips but disappeared. Everything before her eyes shocked her. I lay in a pool of blood, my forehead with a horrific wound. The carpet beneath dyed a dark red. The medical report recorded 3 broken ribs, right index finger shattered, lungs filled with fluid. My voice was strangely calm. This is Tang Qingyo's masterpiece. She was my ex-wife. I paused for a moment, then my eyes shifted to the marriage certificate. No, in fact, we had no relationship at all. She thought the person in the sack was a thug bullying her husband, but the person inside was actually me. See how anyone turned to the next page, saw photos from surveillance cameras, tall woman, pushing the person in the sack down from a high platform multiple times. Beside the pool stood a handsome man, a smile on his lips. I pointed at that man. Sai Lingfei, her legal husband, and I was just a joke. See you anyone finally understood where my obsession with Tang Group originated. This was an ordinary business competition, but bone-deep hatred, so you want to destroy her. It wasn't a question. I walked to the window. Moonlight lengthened my shadow. I want her to taste the feeling of losing everything. My finger gently traced the window glass. Lose her company, lose her honor, lose. My voice suddenly stopped. Sai Yuanyuan came behind me. Not touching, just silently present, she said softly. Revenge doesn't bring true peace. I suddenly turned around, eyes burning with a dark flame. Then what? Forgiveness. Forgetting. I tore my nightshirt collar, revealing the horrific scar below my collarbone. This was caused by her hands using an iron rod. 99 strikes, I counted clearly. See you anyone looked at that scar, suddenly reached out to embrace my waist. I froze for a moment, then as if all strength had been drained, collapsed against her chest. Sai Yuanyuan's chin rested on the top of my head. I won't stop you. I just don't want to see you consumed by hatred. She gently took hold of my deformed finger. These wounds, they shouldn't define your life. I didn't answer, but Xia Yuanyuan felt her shoulder gradually getting wet. Outside the window, the eastern sky began to lighten. Xia Yuanyuan looked at me, who had calmed down in her arms, made a decision. Show me your plan. All the details. I looked up, my swollen red eyes flashing with surprise. Xia Yuanyuan wiped the tears from my face. If this helps you truly let go, start over. He'll help you. When the first ray of sunlight came through the curtain, I was pointing at Tang Group's shareholding structure, explaining to Xia Yuanyuan about my acquisition strategy. My voice still hoarse, but my eyes had regained clarity. Sunlight shone on the scattered documents, illuminating the wrinkled marriage certificate. I looked at it for a moment, had regained clarity. Sunlight shone on the scattered documents, illuminating the wrinkled marriage certificate. I looked at it for a moment, then casually threw it in the trash. I stood before the floor-to-ceiling window on the highest floor of E's group, looking down at the entire city. The glass reflected my silhouette. My fingertip held a glass of red wine. The dark red liquid in the glass swirled slightly, looking very much like the pool of blood I lay in that day. My assistant knocked and entered, respectfully presenting a stack of documents. Sir? Shen, Tang Group stock price has dropped another 5%. The market is generally not optimistic about Tang Qingya's recent decisions. I took the documents, the corner of my lips curving into a cold arc. Very good. I flipped through Tang Group's recent financial report. My fingertip lightly tapped a row of figures. Tang Qingyo, to compensate for the money Xi Lingfei had embezzled previously, had sold off many assets under her name. I folded the documents, my voice calm. Continue selling the Tang Group bonds that we hold. The assistant hesitated a bit, but if Tang Group collapses too quickly, we will also lose part of our investment. I looked up, my eyes flashing with a sharp gleam. It doesn't matter. I don't care. I only care that Tang Qingyo will gradually lose the things that were once most important to her, just like everything I lost. Tang Group. Tang Qingyo in her office stared at the computer screen, the stock price curve dropping sharply, phone calls from shareholders continuously pouring in. She irritated, directly pressed. Silent, she coldly told her assistant, find out who is behind this. The assistant's forehead beaded with cold sweat. We've checked the money flow from an emerging investment company in Switzerland. Deep background, for now can't find who's really in control. Tang Qingyo frowned, suddenly remembered something. The company name. Yeah, she murmured, repeating this name, seeming to have realized something. Yanshu, her pupils suddenly contracted, her finger unconsciously gripped the pen tightly. Is it him? Has he returned? I sat in a private room. Across from me was Song Qingwu, former CFO of Tang Group. Song Qingwu rubbed his hands, eyes glittering. Here? Shen, the conditions you promised me. I smiled slightly, pushing over a check. This is the deposit. Upon completion, you will receive the rest. Song Qingwu greedily looked at the figure on the check, repeatedly nodding. Rest assured, Tang Qingyo recently destabilized stock prices, is preparing to mortgage. To stabilize stock prices, is preparing to mortgage. Core patents, just need me to make a small move. I interrupted him, my voice gentle, but allowing no argument. No, I want you to help her. Song Qingwu was stunned. What? I took a sip of wine, my eyes flashing with coldness. Help her stabilize the stock. Let her think the crisis has passed. Then when she's most relaxed, to deliver a fatal blow. The next day, Tang Qingjiu looked at the suddenly stabilized stock price. Frowning tightly, the assistant reported, "We found out it's Director Song contacting several organizations for investment." Tang Qingjiu was silent for a moment, suddenly laughed coldly. Song Qingwu. What connection does he have? The assistant shook his head. Not clear, but the money has really arrived, temporarily relieving our pressure. Tang Qingyu walked to the window, the city at night bright with lights. She always felt something was wrong. Investigate. She turned around, her face showing no relief despite the rising stock price. Find out which organization Song Qingwu contacted. Quickly. Outside the window the night was pitch dark, like the calm before a storm. I received documents from Xie Yuanyuan, glanced at them, smiled slightly. Tang Qingyu indeed has become suspicious. Xie Yuanyuan raised an eyebrow. Close the net yet. I folded the documents, my eyes toward the night sky outside. Wait a bit longer. I want her to come begging to me, just like I once begged her to turn around. The truth proved Tang Qingyu's intuition was not wrong. When Tang Group stock price gradually stabilized, those organizations, as if by agreement, simultaneously withdrew their capital. Tang Group's stock price dropped sharply, even to the lowest point in history. Tang Qingyu stood before the large window, her palm gradually tightening. The assistant stood behind, not daring to breathe loudly, whereas Song Qingwu, no longer reachable, the words barely finished. The office fell into a deathly silence. Sweat on the assistant's forehead could be wiped fast enough. He thought of what he'd found, feeling that once he spoke up, his career would likely be over. Those organizations. Have you found the owners yet? Still need to. The assistant closed his eyes, placed the documents in his hand on the desk. CO Tang. Through investigation, the investment organizations belong to different companies, but those companies all belong to us. Tang Qingyu, after hearing this, again had a feeling of relief as if she had anticipated it. Her instinct told her, "This was me. It's over." Since that's the case, Tang Qingjiu stood beneath the Yi's company building, her suit slightly wrinkled, eyes full of blood vessels. She had waited there for 3 days, the receptionist polite but cold, rejecting all her appointment requests, security guards vigilantly blocking her. Each time she tried to rush in, but she could not bear it any longer. "Get out of my way." Her voice terrifyingly low, the security guard had no time to react. Tang Qingyu had already pushed him aside, quickly walking toward the elevator. The door to the top floor office was pushed open forcefully. I sat by the large window, my back turned to her, the pen in my hand, making a sharp line on a document, not turning around. Voice calm. CO Tang, breaking into someone else's office. I could call the police. Tang Qingyu's breath paused. This voice, the voice she had heard countless times in dreams, now within reach, cold as a stranger's. She advanced a step with a hoarse voice. "Yanshu, I know it's you." I finally turned around, my fingertip lightly tapping the nameplate on the desk. Correcting her. "Arthur, or you can call me Mir." Shen. Tang Qingyu's chest heaved violently. "Bao Xi Lingfei. I've found out everything." She stepped quickly forward, both hands supporting herself on my desk. "It was him who directed those acts. It was him who always deceived me. I really thought the thug initially was hired by you to harm him." I silently looked at her, my eyes without a ripple. Tang Qingyu's voice grew increasingly small. "If I had known it was you, how could I have?" I suddenly laughed. "Could what? Could you not have pushed me down from the high platform with your own hand? Could you not have used an iron rod to break my ribs? Or could you not have crushed my fingers?" I took the remote control, gently pressing a button. The screen in the office slowly descended, the image of the sack sliding down, revealing my pale blood-stained face. While Tang Qingyu coldly stood watching, Xi Lingfei standing behind her, the corner of his mouth curved into a triumphant smile. Along with the scene of the iron rod coming down, my body curling up in the small painful groan, Tang Qingyu's face instantly paled. I propped my chin. Voice gentle. "Shall I continue playing? Have much more. For example, the part where you hug Xi Lingfei. Made him call you wife." Tang Qingjiu was speechless. She looked at the cold eyes of the person before her. The next second her knees. She looked at the cold eyes of the person before her. The next second her knees heavily fell to the ground. "I'm sorry." Her voice trembling, fingers tightly gripping the edge of my desk. "I really didn't know." I looked down at her, suddenly finding it amusing. Tang Qingjiu, once so proud, now kneeling before me, like a homeless dog. Tang Qingjiu suddenly closed her eyes. After a long silence, Tang Qingjiu looked up. "Yanshu, what do you want to forgive me?" I took a document from the drawer, pushed it in front of her. "Tang Group share acquisition contract. Sign it. All shares in your hands. I will buy at market price." Tang Qingjiu was stunned. "You want Tang Group?" I stood up, leather shoes trading on marble floor, making a hollow sound. I leaned down, my fingertip lightly pointing at the contract. "No, I want you to hand Tang Group to me with your own then watch it being destroyed piece by piece in my hands." Tang Qingyu's fingertips trembled, caressing that contract. She knew what this meant. Hand it over. Years of Tang Group's business would completely change owners. Not hand it over, she would forever lose the chance to atone to me. I watched her torn expression, suddenly finding it meaningless. It'll give you 3 days to think. I turned toward the large window, my back cold and distant. However, Tang Qingyo, don't forget, currently you have no position to negotiate with me. The conference room on the top floor of Tang Group. I sat in the host position, my fingertip gently tapping on the table. Before me were asset separation agreements waiting for signature. On both sides of the meeting table were senior managers who once fawned before Tang Qingyo. Now all lowered their heads. Even their breathing was light. Afraid to disturb my thoughts, the new energy division sold. The medical sector merged into Sia Group. My voice is cold as if discussing today's weather. As for the remaining empty shell, keep it, the finance director cautiously asked. Here? Shen, what about the Tang brand? Looking up, the corner of my mouth curved into a cold arc. Tang Group from today is no longer Tang Group. I raised my hand, pushing the final document down the table to the woman who had remained silent. The document slid before Tang Qingyo, the cover clearly stating, Position Adjustment Notice. She would keep the CO title, but all decision-making power would be stripped. Every day she must submit work reports. To me, Tang Qingyo stared at that document, her fingers slightly trembling, but she didn't reach out to take it. I looked at her, suddenly smiled. What's wrong? Xiao Tang not satisfied. The conference room was silent. Tang Qingyo slowly raised her head. Those black eyes, once as sharp as a hawk, now dim without light. As if all life had been drained. She was silent for a few seconds, finally reaching out to take the pen, signing her name on the document. Xiao, your daily report. The secretary placed a document on Tang Qingyo's desk. Voice respectful, but eyes hiding pity. Tang Qingyo emotionlessly opened it. Tang Group Maintenance Progress Report. It detailed the condition of company signs, number of cleanings each day, watering status of office plants, number of guests received at the reception desk. She closed her eyes, signed her name. This was my requirement. She must sign with her own hand. To confirm, she was seriously managing this empty company. In an outdoor cafe, I was carefully cutting a steak on my plate, the knife cutting across the porcelain plate, making a light sound. Xie Wenyuan smiled slightly. Your steak cutting posture is still too aggressive, like dissecting an enemy, then reaching to take my plate, naturally cutting it into small pieces. I raised an eyebrow. Maybe that's exactly right. Xie Yuanyuan pushed the plate back, her fingertip lightly touching the back of my hand. How does revenge taste? I looked out at the lake, sunlight breaking into thousands of golden pieces on the water surface. I said softly, emptier than imagined. Xia Yuanyuan looked at my profile. Suddenly speaking, there's an astronomy exhibition tonight. Do you want to go? You once said as a child you loved stargazing most. I was startled. I had indeed said that long ago, on a drunken night. Never thought she would still remember. Under the dome of stars, at the Astronomy Museum, I raised my head to look at the slowly moving simulated Milky Way. Xia Wenyuan standing behind me. That star's Altair. She looked up, explaining beside me. In Chinese legend, it and Vega only meet once a year. I smiled slightly. Isn't that a tragedy? Xia Wenyuan's voice was very soft, but at least they can reunite every year. Don't you think? I looked down at her, suddenly discovered her eyelashes, under the blue light, looked especially long, like covered in stars. Under the blue light, looked especially long, like covered in stardust. The distance between the two people unconsciously shortened. Close to each other. Shen Yanshu, a hoarse shout echoed from behind. I turned to see Tang Qingyo standing at the bottom of the steps. Face pale, eyes full of blood vessels. She stared at Xia Yuanyuan's arm around my shoulder, her chest heaving violently. Who is she? The hallway lights of the Astronomy Museum were cold white. I leaned against the wall, indifferently adjusting my sleeve. Xiao Tang, do I need to remind you, your current behavior constitutes harassment and stalking. Tang Qingya's fist tightened until her knuckles cracked. I ask you who she is. I smiled slightly. Xia Yuanyuan. My partner, girlfriend or future wife, however you want to define it. The two words, wife, like a knife stabbing into Tang Qingya's heart. She suddenly grabbed my wrist. We're still not divorced. I looked down at her hand. Suddenly laughed. Divorced? Tang Qingyo. Don't forget, our marriage certificate was fake. I slowly withdrew my hand, opened my phone to take out a document. Opening it before her, marriage invalidation certificate. Do I need to remind you, your legal husband is currently in prison. Tang Qingyo staggered back a step, as if all strength had been drained. Xia Yuanyuan stepped out from the shadows, one hand naturally around my arm, her voice calm. Tang, if you continue to harass my boyfriend, I will consider applying for a restraining order. Tang Qingyo stared at the hand placed on my arm, suddenly remembered many years ago. She had done the same under the cherry tree at school, declaring ownership in front of everyone. Shen Yanshu is mine. No one is allowed to touch him. Now the roles reversed. She had become the one being warned, only now tasting what ultimate pain was. In the car on the way back, I looked out the window, the street view quickly receding. Suddenly spoke. Was I too cruel just now? Xia Yuanyuan with one hand on the steering wheel, the other placed on the back of my hand. Compared to what she did to you, this doesn't even count as interest. I lowered my head, looking at our hands on top of each other. Suddenly realizing I didn't know when Revenge had ceased to be the only reason for me to continue living. The sunroof of the car slowly opened, revealing a star-filled sky. Xiao Yuanyuan's voice mixed with the night breeze. Look at Vega. I looked up, for the first time feeling, it turns out the starry sky doesn't have to make one feel lonely. Not far behind us, Tang Qingyo stood in the darkness, staring at where I and Xiao Yuanyuan had been. Shen Yanshu, are you provoking me? Aren't you? Surely you haven't forgotten me. Just found someone like that. Want me to bow my head? Right? Her eyes were dark, seeming to have resolved something. Rain poured down in front of the Tang Group building. Tang Qingyo melt in the rain. Clothes had been soaked for a long time, black hair disheveled sticking to her forehead, her knees deep in puddles, but still stubbornly raising her head, eyes fixed on the lit window on the highest floor. She knew I was there. Shen Yanshu, her voice hoarse, almost drowned out by thunder. Please meet me one more time. The revolving door of the building slowly opened. Several security guards with black umbrellas came out. The team leader sighed. Xiao Tang, here? Shen has said, if you continue like this, we will have to take forceful measures. Tang Qingyo twisted her lips, rainwater streaming down her chin, and then let him come drive me away himself. The security guards looked at each other, reluctantly used their radio to ask for instructions. The radio seemed to say something. The security guards looked hesitant. After looking at each other, they brought out a bucket of water. The next second, a bucket. Ice-cold water poured from above, splashing hard onto Tang Qingyo's head. The bone-chilling cold instantly pierced through to her marrow. Her lips immediately lost their blood color, her whole body uncontrollably trembling. At the window on the top floor, I coldly watched this scene, my fingertip lightly tapping the Bluetooth earpiece. Tang Qingyo, you think this suffering tactic works on me? My voice transmitted through the security guard's radio, clear and cruel. When you broke my bones that year, I didn't even have the chance to kneel and beg you. Early the next morning, when Tang Qingyo woke up in the hotel room, she discovered all credit cards had been locked, the phone constantly vibrating. Missed calls from the bank director filled the screen. She called back, the other's voice very serious. Tang, your personal account has been locked by the international payment system, including your foreign trust funds. Tang Qingyao's knuckles holding the phone turned white. I truly pushed her to a dead end. Not only were Tang Group's assets frozen, now she couldn't even pushed her to a dead end. Not only were Tang Group's assets frozen, now she couldn't even pay for the hotel room. She suddenly laughed softly, the laugh hoarse like sandpaper rubbing. Yanshu, you really left me no way out, and my revenge was even more than that. In the company-wide staff meeting, I sat in the first position, my fingertip gently tapping the table, slowly beginning to speak. Today we have a special activity. Let's welcome Xiao Tang to read a business document to everyone. Tang Qingyo stood in the corner of the room, face pale, hands tightly holding the yellowed stack of papers. Those were the love letters she wrote to me at 18. Every page soaked with the most sincere vows of her youth. Urged softly, read it. Let everyone learn from Xiao Tang's writing style. The entire hall was silent. Tang Qingyo's fingertips trembled slightly, but she still turned the first page. Yanshu, today seeing you in a white shirt. My heart beats so fast it's like I'm dying. Her voice dry. Reading to the third page, her eyes reddened. Wait for me until I'm 20. Let's get married. I will love you for life. Only love you. Her voice hoarse beyond recognition. Word by word reading through all 20 pages. When she read the last sentence, the hall could hear a pin drop. Several female employees had quietly reddened eyes, but I continued smiling, even applauding at the end. I commented, excellent performance. Too bad it was all lies. Tang Qingyo suddenly looked up, something in her eyes completely shattered. This incident caused major discussion in the company. Xiao Yuanyuan pushed the door open, throwing a stack of files hard onto the desk. Papers scattered, revealing the top medical chart. Tang Qingyo, severe depression with symptoms of gastric bleeding. Siwani voice cold as ice. Look at this. If this continues, she will die. I lowered my eyes to glance, my fingertips unconsciously contracting, but quickly returning to calm. I took the coffee cup for a sip. Voice indifferent. So what? Xiao Yuanyuan stared at me. Suddenly laughed, smile that didn't reach her eyes. So, Shen Yanshu, when did you become such a person? She stepped closer. Her slender white finger tapped on the medical chart, making a dull sound. Making her lose everything isn't enough. Making her report to you like a dog every day isn't enough. Now you want to watch her go to the ICU before you're satisfied. My eyelids trembled slightly. I'm not forcing her. This is what she deserves. See Yuanyuan suddenly leaned down, both hands on the armrests of my chair, trapping me in a small space. Really? Then why don't you dare look at me? My breath paused. Xiao Yuanyuan's voice lowered, carrying an indescribable meaning. Shen Yanshu, could it be you haven't completely let her go? The office fell into deadly silence. Outside the window, raindrops hit the glass, like some kind of countdown clock. Finally I spoke, my voice very soft. I haven't. Xiao Yuanyuan didn't move, still maintaining that pressuring posture, her eyes like knives cutting across my face. Then why don't you dare admit you've gone too far? I suddenly stood up. Xiao Yuanyuan, you know what I've been through. You know Xiao Yuanyuan interrupted me, her voice suddenly softening. I know, but you now are no different from Tang Qingyo back then. This sentence was like a slap, hitting me hard in the face. I staggered back a step, my chest heaving violently. That's right. What kind of person had I become? For revenge, I could coldly watch Tang Qingyo with her day by day, could calculate precisely each portion of her pain, even enjoy her collapse. Isn't this exactly what Tang Qingyo did to me back then? My voice choked. Xiao Wenyuan sighed, reaching out to stroke my face. Hatred burning too long will burn oneself to ashes. Closed my eyes, tears silently falling. The office door was pushed open forcefully. The secretary rushed and panicked. Here? Shen, former Tang Group members together with 3 private investment funds are maliciously acquiring our company's circulating shares. I immediately became alert. When did this happen? Half an hour ago. They already hold 12% of shares and are continuing to buy. The secretary brought over a tablet. This is the leader. On the screen, the former CFO of Tang Group was giving an interview. This acquisition method was originally controversial. We are just correcting a wrong, taking back what belongs to us. I clenched my fist, nails digging deep into my palm. Song Qingwu, the CFO I had once recruited, I coldly ordered. Meeting immediately. Come up with countermeasures. Also investigate their funding source. Xie Wenyuan suddenly interrupted me. Come up with countermeasures. Also investigate their funding source. Xie Wenyuan suddenly interrupted me. No need. Song Qingwu probably from the beginning pretended to be bought by you. I suddenly turned my head. What do you mean? Xia Wenyuan nodded, her eyes complex. You thought he was Tang Group's person, but the most likely possibility. He wasn't anyone's person. He acted for his own interests. My brain worked at high speed. If that's the case, this problem is simpler than I thought. I suddenly took my coat. Prepare the car to Tang Group. Xia Wenyuan frowned. Where are you going? Tang Qingyo. I didn't turn my head. When I pushed the door, Tang Qingyo was standing by the large window, her thin figure like a shadow. Hearing the sound, she slowly turned around, her eyes flashing with surprise, then returning to deadness. She said in a hoarse voice, "Distinguished guest, here? Shin comes to inspect work in person." I walked straight to her, pushed the tablet over and explained. Tang Qingyo glanced at the screen. Slightly frowning, "I don't know about this. Song Qingwu is your person?" Was. Tang Qingyo looked up, her deep black eyes looking straight at me. Just like I was once yours. My breath paused. The two confronted each other for a moment. I suddenly took a deep breath. I need you to help me resolve this. Tang Qingyo was stunned. She asked softly, "Why?" I was silent for a moment, giving an answer that surprised even myself. Because only you understand how former Tang Group employees operate. This wasn't the whole truth. Former middle and senior Tang Group employees, half were still under my command, but I wouldn't admit it. The moment I saw her medical chart, something in my heart had broken. Tang Qingyo looked at me for a long time. Suddenly smiled, a tired but peaceful smile. All right. She turned to take a document from a drawer, handing it to me. This is a network of relationships and weaknesses of former Tang Group employees I compiled. Enough for you to use against them. I opened the document, my pupils contracted. The document was very detailed. Obviously not prepared recently. You predicted this day. Tang Qingyo didn't answer, just went to the coat rack to get her coat. Let's go. Well, I still remember how to be a seal. Her back straight, as if in that moment finding a bit of her former glory. Perhaps this was the last thing she could do for me. The Tang Group meeting room. I pushed the last document down. The final document pushed to the end of the table. Your severance payments have been transferred. I looked around at the veterans with different expressions. Voice calm. From today, Tang Group and you have no further connection. The finance director tremblingly spoke. Here? Shen, we have followed the Tang family for 30 years. I lightly tapped my fingertip on the table, so you receive double compensation to leave with honor. Rather than like Sai Lingfei, counting each stitch on his face in prison to pass the day. The meeting room immediately fell silent. In the corner, Tang Qingyo lowered her head. The wrinkles in her shirt still held the damp smell of the rainy night. She remained silent throughout the meeting, like an empty shell without a soul. After everyone left, Tang Qingyo still sat in place. Anything else? I closed the file. She suddenly reached out to hold the file, her knuckles turning white. Do we really have no chance at all? My eyes paused on her hand, where there was a new wound. From breaking a mirror and cutting herself the night before, I suddenly remembered many years ago. Teenage Tang Qingyo, climbing over the wall bringing me strawberries, getting her palm cut by barbed wire, but smiling saying it didn't hurt. I said softly, do you know what I thought in that sack that day? I thought if you turned to look at me once. Just once. Tang Qingyo's pupils contracted strongly. But you did? I pulled the document away. So my answer is no, not at all. Xia Yuanwen's words suddenly came to mind. She was right. The best ending for revenge is to forget completely. I turned toward the large window. Sunlight pierced through the clouds, casting a pale golden layer over my features. A few days later, I suddenly received a video from an unknown number. In the image, Tang Qingyo was kneeling on steep stone steps, forehead pressed against a blue stone. Kowtowing after every 3 steps, on the winding stairs dark red bloodstains, her knees had raw, broken skin. This was the temple where I once prayed for beads for her years ago. The background voice was the assistant's. He softly reported, the CO has been kneeling for 3 days. The abbot said she is praying. Delete it. I turned off the video. From now on, no need to report her matters anymore. I went to the safe, took out a share transfer certificate. After signing it, I paused, then took out a note. The ink pen hovered in the air for a long time, finally writing only 3 words. Debts settled. A note. The ink pen hovered in the air for a long time, finally writing only 3 words. Debts settled. When Tang Qinzhou received the document, she was lying in the temple's meditation room. She had a high fever, her whole body delirious, the abbot side bringing hot tea. A person who loses their attachment, harms themselves and others. She tremblingly opened the document. The share transfer certificate slid out. The note was blown by wind through the window gap, gently falling on her chest. In her delirium, she remembered when she was 20. I waited for her in the snow to keep a promise, my nose red from the cold, but smiling, saying, Tang Qingyou, I have waited for you, and now I finally waited no more. Outside the window, the first snow of this winter silently fell. Xia Yuanyuan stopped in front of a pristine white building in the suburbs. She opened the car door for me, her fingertip lightly scratching my palm. Originally planned to wait until completion to show you, but someone recently has been such a workaholic I couldn't schedule an appointment. I raised an eyebrow. Jura, Saya, is this a complaint? She stood on tiptoe to bite my chin. It's an accusation that you've abandoned me for 3 days and 7 hours. Inside the building, lights were on. At the end of the corridor, crystal sign covered with red silk. Xia Yuanyuan suddenly covered my eyes from behind. Counting down from 3, in the darkness I heard the sound of fabric sliding down. Now look, the red silk fell. The inscription on the sign, Shinyanshu Trauma Research Center, glittering under the spotlights. All profits will be invested in research on trauma sequelae. Xia Yuanyuan's breath brushed past my ear, including those old wounds on your knees. I stared at the sign. The space between my eyebrows suddenly tightened. The scars left from kneeling to pray for beads that year. It turns out she remembered everything. Perhaps it wasn't a coincidence. The large window of the research center's restroom faced the old Tang Group building. I was bending down checking data, suddenly noticed light moving on the ceiling. When I looked up, a line of fluorescent green text was flashing on the white wall. Yanshu, the kite is stuck in the tree. My whole body stiffened. This is the code Tang Qingyou created at 16. That day she broke her arm getting a kite for me, but smiled saying, Yanshu, don't cry. I don't hurt. On the rooftop of the building opposite, a thin figure leaned against the railing, hand still waving a laser pointer. Although hundreds of meters away, I still recognized it was Tang Qingyou. She wore a high school uniform coat. Wearing our high school uniform coat, like a stubborn ghost, the light beam continued to move. New text appeared. This time I will catch you. I stared silently for 3 seconds, suddenly stood up pulling the curtains tight. The moment darkness enveloped the room, I called Xia Yuanyuan, come to the restroom immediately. Bring the ring from the second drawer in the dressing room. On the other end came the sound of medical instruments dropping. Since when did you find out? Xia Yuanyuan's breathing was clearly disturbed. I looked through the gap in the curtains as a beam of light entered, the corner of my mouth slightly curving up. Last time you secretly measured my finger size, left a handful of chalk dust on my hand. The laser from the opposite building still tried to pierce through the curtain, casting a weak light spot on the floor. I raised my foot to step on that light spot, hearing hurried footsteps from outside the door approaching. I suddenly called her full name. Xia Yuanyuan, I want you to come here right now. To propose. The door was pushed open hard. In her hand she tightly held a velvet ring box. Still panting, but her eyes bright and sparkling, the laser at my feet stubbornly flickered, finally went out completely. On the wedding day, Xia Yuanyuan's wedding dress had no complicated lace, just a simple silk dress, under moonlight emitting a pearl-like glow. I wore a white shirt, sleeves rolled up to the elbows. Tie had been loosened long ago. I held her hand, exchanged rings on the star observation deck at the peak of the Alps. Below were only a dozen close friends. The sound of champagne glasses clinking mixed with mountain wind, clear as the sound of shattering stars. I leaned down to kiss Xia Yuanyuan, then looked up at the Milky Way. Person once the focus of thousands, now understood how precious tranquility was. The waiters brought mountains of gifts. Among them, one ebony box particularly stood out. The moment I opened the box lid, Xia Yuanyuan clearly felt my finger tremble. The prayer beads once given by Tang Qingyou to Xi Lingfei now lay still on the velvet lining. Each sandalwood bead emitted a warm glow. Obviously had been caressed for a long time. On the attached card were only 7 words. This time it's my turn. Pray for your peace. Xia Yuanyuan snatched the box, threw it to the assistant, donated to the temple. But I smiled, casually hung the beads on the wedding bouquet. Makes a good cautionary tale. Donate it to the temple. But I smiled, casually hung the beads on the wedding bouquet. Makes a good cautionary tale. In a strict mental hospital room, the TV was broadcasting news of the wedding. Xi Lingfei's gaunt fingers clawed at the screen, nail splitting and bleeding without him noticing. He screamed, smashing a glass cup. I am the son-in-law of the Tang family. I am more handsome than him. Right? The guard coldly observed, until he collapsed exhausted in a pool of blood, only then dragging him like a dead dog and throwing him on the bed. The cell patient is acting up again. The nurse noted, today self-harmed 7 times. As she finished, Xi Lingfei screamed again, knocking over the mirror in front of him. What is this? Who sent this? Who sent this? His face, the face that once resembled me 7 parts, now full of horrific scars. His right eye couldn't even close completely. The guard coldly looked at him. Anonymous donation? According to regulations you must accept. Si Lingfei frantically clawed at his face. Until it was bloody, he recognized this mirror. On the frame was inscribed a small line. Look at who you resemble now. Sai Lingfei frantically threw the mirror against the wall, fragments scattered everywhere. Outside the window, black crow flew past the iron bars, making a piercing sound like merciless mocking laughter. In a field hospital in the African desert, Tang Qingyo was kneeling on the ground bandaging wounds for children. The harsh sun had peeled the skin on her nape. The expensive dresses had been exchanged for wrinkled coarse fabric shirts. When a shy boy offered a dirty candy, she suddenly remembered 18-year-old me. I always liked to tuck strawberry hard candies into her textbooks. The phone in her pocket vibrated. It was a breaking news notification. His list today. Estimated market value exceeds hundreds of billions. The moment the screen lit up, the nurse was surprised to see the phone wallpaper of this quiet Chinese doctor was a teenage boy in uniform. In the photo, the teenage boy in uniform stood under a cherry blossom tree, turning his head to smile. When the bell rang, Xiao Yuanyuan had already lit fireworks on a New York rooftop, a listing celebration gift. She hugged me from behind. How does it compare to Tang Qingyo renting the entire amusement park back then? I turned to embrace Xiao Yuanyuan tightly. Not even close. You're 10 times more beautiful than her. Fireworks exploded above our heads, illuminating Wall Street that never sleeps.